podcast, episode 74, gentlemen. It is we are making some real history here. Before you know it, we'll be at episode 100. But I'm with my esteemed co-host, Mr. Gary the Legend Johnson, and we got a special guest, Will Nunnery. Did I
Hi
say your
everyone.
last name correct?
Yep,
Man, this
correct.
fellow Johnson Wells alum, but also a huge Eagles hater.
Like him already. All right.
That I am.
I believe you two are fellow Giants fans, correct?
Are you a Giants fan?
Sir.
Oh, awesome. See, I knew I liked this guy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Why was you on before this? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We got to talk about those Eagles and your absolute hatred and your hatred for LeBron James too, because you are a LeBron James hater as well. I've never
Yes.
met someone who hates LeBron James so much, but we'll talk about that. We will. So tonight we have a lot of fun stuff. We got these rather interesting MLB rule changes. These Mets and Padres, man, because they've been spending a lot of money. So we definitely have to discuss that. Curious about these Padres, and yeah, that's going to be interesting. NBA load management, I kind of feel a type of way about that. I kind of have a gripe about that. And the Lakers forecast without LeBron James and Anthony Davis went down for an injury yet again, and more NCAA hoops. And of course, we got to watch out what are going to be some other storylines within sports that we're going to be paying attention to. So let's just talk about these MLB rule changes. Well, you know, where do I begin? They changed the shift, which I didn't have an issue with because as a kid playing baseball, they teach you how to hit to the opposite side of the field.
Right. Right.
The pitch clock, which I agree with, and then the batter clock. I believe it's like 8 seconds between each one, and we had a
Yeah.
strikeout. Talk to me, buddy.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me, um, I was a little offended by the pitch timer. Honestly, I think that pitchers really, they get into their craft when they can take their time. And I get the whole, you want to pace the game, you want to create some sort of excitement. We're trying to be just as exciting as these other sports, but pitching is harder than it looks, honestly. And it takes time in between each pitch, whether you're throwing fastball, curveball, whatever you're calling and throwing, your body needs time to take time, to recover from that. So for me, when I saw that as a rule change, I just felt a little bad for these guys. Personally, I was never a pitcher. I was an outfielder in Little League. um, but it just, I don't know. I get it. I get it. I definitely get, you want to keep people watching, right? Especially people at home, because as everyone talks about, a game is more interesting when you're in person when it comes to baseball. Yes, we get it. But they're probably really trying to keep, not only the in-person fans interested in what's going on in the stadium, but also those fans that are watching on TV as well, trying to keep the pace going. So I kind of get it, but a little offended for the pitchers.
I got you. Gary, talk to me, man.
Now I'm kind of actually on the other side of this with the pitch clock. And the best example is literally what Max Scherzer said the other day. Like, this is now giving, if it's executed properly, this is giving the pitchers control, like control that they have largely lacked for years. Like, you were kind of like everybody had the little mind, the little games that they played, little things. We got wait, timeout, got to readjust my glove, got to kick the dirt off my cleats. Like, we're losing that, and I consider I'm a big baseball fan. I wouldn't consider myself a diehard baseball fan. Of course, I'm a giant Yankees fan, but just in general, the game can be a little tedious and boring. And if I'm saying that at 35 or 34, going on 35 years old, I can only imagine what my kids think about the game. I have an eight. Well, I don't know if you know, but I have an 8 and 5 year old.
Oh, nice.
So, like, for me, like, my oldest is getting into sports more and more, and he's going to be doing little league next month. He's going to start for the first time,
Nice.
and for me, I'm like, I want to keep that flint of like interest in the game alive as long as possible, and I think ways to do that is to shorten the games up. Like, if you can get a 9 inning, like back in the day, like when you had the Yankees had Mariano Rivera, those games were probably 2.5 hours because you knew that it was by the time you got to the ninth inning, you hear Enter Sandman, it was shut him down time. It was over.
Right.
So like those games were fast. I worked at the stadium the first season. It was the new stadium. The first season it was open, and we kind of knew like once you heard Enter Sandman, all right, we got about like 10, 15 minutes left before it shifts over. Like you kind of had an idea from that point. But I digress. Yeah, just if you can speed up the game, like that's going. Our attention span as a people has dropped considerably. So you need to do as much in a short amount of time as possible.
I mean, that's facts. I mean, you look at baseball, and I remember, growing up in Baltimore, going to the Orioles games at Camden Yards. The game would start at 7:00, but literally wouldn't get out the stadium until 12:00 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And even for me, like I love the game of baseball, but you also got to remember, like we're playing. Imagine being in Houston if they didn't have the dome, or being out there in the heat when it's like 100 and 105 degrees outside. Now it is what it is. You know what you're getting into, but if they're trying to continue to capture the minds of baseball, they have to be able to continue to be innovative because it is a very slow game. I still think that baseball is putting themselves in a bad light as far as just the long term, just because of the style of play. I think that this is a good start, but they're going to have to continue to find new ways to get innovative. However, I do not think that the shifts or making the bases bigger are necessarily going to solve that problem. The pace of play is the issue. And that stupid overtime rule, that or extra inning game where they put someone on second base, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know, but they said that on average that the games have been under 3 hours since they started to do that at spring training. I don't know. Will?
Okay. I mean, if it holds true that the games are under 3 hours at spring training and that translates to the regular season and they remain, I get it, right? We all don't want to be sitting in a ballpark for 6 hours, even if you're watching your favorite team. So I definitely get that. Again, my point was, I just felt a little bad for the pitchers that like to take their time and play their best game when they have that extra time, but I get everyone else's point, and that makes a lot of sense. One thing I did kind of want to bring up here was how do we all feel about the extra, the bases being a little bigger? Like, do we really think that's going to make a difference?
All right, so I used pizza boxes when our field didn't have the actual bases growing up because that's what was around. So for me, it's almost like a tapping back into my childhood, seeing that. But in all seriousness, I think there will be more bang bang plays at the plate this season going forward, going forward, because I think that part of the game is as exciting as anything else. So you're going to hustle down the first base line if you know that you have a chance, a better chance of making it to first base, but not having to run as far. Likewise, if you're playing defense, you have a larger range to step on the bag and get somebody out. And I think for that reason, I'm okay with it. Could they've gone a little small? Like they used the large piece box. They could have gone personal pan, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Will.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to chime in. I think another reason I read that was so important for them to make the bases a couple extra inches was to prevent that whole collision and injury aspect, right? That we see a lot on the first base action. So I think that was another point for them, which I definitely, I'm all about player safety in any sport, so I get it.
No doubt. I mean, it's going to be baseball. I think it's going to be very interesting and somewhat exciting to see what baseball does to continue to be innovative. There's only so much that you can do to make it more innovative and to change the pace of play because you're hitting a ball and you're running around bases. So it's going to be. I mean, I don't know how much more. I really don't know how much more you can. I just don't know. baseball is kind of at its Kodak moment where are they going to be Kodak or are they going to be Apple, right? Like
Right.
you just wonder and just we haven't really talked baseball too much, but Will, man, like what else do you think they can do to improve the style of play for this game to make it more exciting? Because I don't know. I don't know. Where do you begin?
Yeah, when you talk about style of play, and you hit on something really good there, right? It's hitting ball, running around the bases, right? I used to have this childhood friend that had a saying about baseball because he wanted me to switch into football. And the saying was, baseball was, in his eyes, it was more about luck than it was about actual talent. And the reason being was you have to be very good at hand-eye coordination to play baseball. That is a sport that solely relies on hand-eye coordination. Other sports rely, on height and other factors that go in and out of there. But this sport is solely on hand and eye coordination. And if you don't have that, you're really not going to be a great player in any position that you play in this sport. So, what can this sport do to be innovative as far as style of play? This sport has been around so long. I mean, we really, realistically, we call it America's pastime, right?
I
So,
mean, yeah, it's pastime.
something
Pastime
that's a
for a reason.
pastime,
It's
how
one
are you,
pastime.
how can you bring that? Exactly.
Yeah,
How can you bring that into today's
and
world?
Gary, I want to ask you this question, then I'll throw it back to you, Will. Like, are we starting to see the the end of baseball as we or like starting to be are we beginning to starting to see the deterioration of baseball because the you look at the fact that their attendance has been going down year after year after year, and you really have to love the game to play it. And I tell you, there's a reason why a lot of brothers don't play the game of baseball because it's boring and it's too expensive to play. So, Gary, I mean, are we starting to see the deterioration? It's slow, but a gradual deterioration of baseball.
Yeah, because our parents' generations are getting older and not going to baseball games anymore. Like that's why. Was it we're the generation of we need instant gratification. We have a short attention span. We can't. The good thing about basketball, it's consistent action for 48 minutes. Yes, you have your timeouts here and there, but you're always dribbling. You're always running back and forth up and down the court. Football is is the ultimate contact sport. So like there's that love for that. There's a thrill for that. Hockey is the same way. Baseball up until now has been you take your sweet time, you wait for the perfect pitch and then you do what you got to do. Like, and for us, like for our generation and younger, like that ain't it. Like that's boring,
And you got to look at the facts here. And real quick, Will, like since 2019, their average attendance has dropped 5.7% every year since 2019. That's a
Wow.
large chunk of
Yeah.
Wow. I did
people.
not know that.
And they have the average, I'm a data type of guy. They have the oldest fan base in the country, which is around like 48, 49 years old. I don't know.
So, I mean, you hit my job in life is social media. That's literally my job. So you're hitting on something that I wanted to get to as far as baseball. I think there is a shift in sports attention from baseball that has been going towards basketball and football. And I think this shift started really in the early 2000s. And I'm going to tell you why. Our generation specifically, we might have played a little bit of Little League, but the sexiest sports that were out when we were kids, basketball, football, and why was that? We had superstar power. We had Michael Jordan. We had Kobe Bryant. We had LeBron coming out. We had the guy that used to be on the Nuggets, Carmelo Anthony. How can I forget him? He was also a Knick. But basketball was super popularized in both the 90s and the 2000s. So our attention shifted towards that, in my opinion. And then also football was starting to really emerge, as Gary said, as the ultimate contact sport, but the sport that you could also play in your little league, in your local little league. So there were a lot of attention shifting on our generation as kids to say, hey, you don't only have baseball anymore. That's like your grandparents' sport. You guys could do football, you could do hockey, you could do soccer. We had Beckham. Like, come on. Like, we had all these other sports that were getting new attention that they didn't get before.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about like demographics, right? The average fan age for baseball is between the ages of 35 and 54, and for the NBA and for the NFL, it captures 70% of all current eligible college educated students, and it's between the ages of 18 to 49 across all different types of demographics. So, when you put that in context, the younger players, hockey is starting to take over because it's exciting, it's exhilarating, and it has a little bit of violence. You think about football, but baseball wants to actually increase the number of games. Football, why is football so popular? Why is college football so popular? It's because they give you more with less. That each game matters. And now these stars aren't playing every game for baseball because there's 162 games, and they can still win an MVP award if they miss like 35 something games. That's a lot. And then you're talking about the MLB, you're talking about spring training, so it just doesn't excite you. And their average attendance between the months of, I think, between April and June is down 30%, but then the attendance goes up between the summer times right before football starts. So,
because Jeff, they're the only game in town at that point.
Right.
Every, with the exception of the NBA and NHL, NFL and NHL, the NFL and Major League Baseball reap the benefit of having kind of the time to themselves for a period of time. Like, you got the crux of baseball season. It can coincide with the end of basketball, end of hockey. You got the dog days of summer, the heat of the season is all to themselves. There's no real competition up until mid-August when you start to see preseason games. And the difference, you mentioned the number of games. Like, you can go to a baseball game. You have 162 times to go to a baseball game. If you're home, if you want to go see your favorite home team, you've got 8 chances. Or now, 9 chances now. But like, that's it. And it's once a week. Like, there is no like baseball. Baseball should be more popular than it is because there's far more exposure. It's on every single day from April Fool's Day through Halloween. Let's say.
Yeah, no doubt. And we could sit in. And we could talk about this, and I think we just need to have a special episode. Will, you're a marketer. We'll have to bring it back and just have like a special, just like future baseball episode. So we'll definitely have to bring you on, LeBron hater. I mean, Will, sorry, God. So let's, there's 2 different parallels with the Mets and Padres. I first want to talk about the Mets from the sense of they've been spending the most money, and there's a luxury tax threshold, which they call the Stephen Cohen threshold, to the point where it's just absolutely insane the amount of money that they're paying. And this is a guy that doesn't understand the way that owners run business. That it's kind of like a good old boys club where it's like, hey, man, you don't want to spend too much money because that's going to put pressure on the low market teams. And then you have the Padres, who are only worth like $1.5 billion, but yet signed a player at 11 years, $280 million. They just re-signed Manny Machado to 11 years, $350 million. Then they still have to pay homeboy, what's his face, the outfielder. Juan Soto, still haven't paid him yet. He's worth $500, and you still have to pay Eric Hosmer like a $80 million left. So, Gary, I'm going to toss it to you, man. Like, what the hell are the Padres doing?
This is the definition of all or nothing, because either they're going to win a World Series in the next 2 seasons, or they may go bankrupt. Like, there's a real chance of this going catastrophically horrible for literally the last game in town in the city of San Diego. They have that city to themselves. They should be kings there, and they're spending the money like royalty. Like you would, so like they know like they have to make noise because their fellow division mates, not about 2 hours north of them, the Dodgers, are going to do that and can do that because Dodger money goes way longer than Padre money. The Dodgers make money year round. Period. The Padres can't say the same thing about. So it's like I said, like I said at the beginning of this, This is legitimately all or nothing. Like they're going to have to win something. They can't not make the playoffs. They can't not get it. Just go to the. I mean, I know they went to the NLCS this year, but like they have to win the NLCS. Like they have to go to a World Series in the next 2 seasons, or this is going to be catastrophically the worst thing that happened to them.
And they have a good chance, and Will, kind of putting it in context, their value historically is 1.6 billion, but their revenue has been 282 billion. Their revenue has only been 282 million, and their player expenses were 199 million, and their operating income was negative 32 million.
Wow.
So based on those numbers, sir, talk to me, Mr. Marketer.
I mean, it's all a game at the end of the day, right? Like you pay to play, let's be honest. You try to invest the most money in what you think is going to be possible. And this is with any sport, like baseball, football, basketball, whatever. If you take the Rams, for example, the other year, they spent all that money souping up that team, made it to the Super Bowl, won, and then couldn't get off the ground in a regular season, right?
All season.
Right. And so I know we're talking about the Padres, but I'm going to harp on the Mets here for a little bit.
Go for it.
That's my team.
Oh, that's adorable.
So the Mets just spent a little under 500 million in this offseason, right? I think it was something like 476 million. I think the Mets got a taste of what it could be like by going to the playoffs this past season, and getting in that first level, and was like, all right, we spent money on Lindor a season or two ago. We can pour some more money into these other positions. I think we could go all the way if we just like put all our money out there. And I think that's the mindset the Mets have, just like the Padres. I think they know if we put all this money out here, we're expecting to at least get to the World Series. We might not win it, but we're trying to get there.
Yeah, but my thing is that you can buy a championship, I think, in basketball, right? Because you can control the outcome of the game in basketball a little bit easier because it's 5-on-5. Football, I think basketball is really the only sport where you can really buy a championship, I feel. If you put 3 of the best players together, you have a pretty damn good chance.
Oh, yeah.
You can go from worst to first. You say what?
So what's good, Doc Rivers?
Hey, I'm just saying, right? Hey, Gary's grapes, everyone. I'm just saying, like, think about it. Back in 2014, when Kyrie Irving in the 2013-2014 season, they only had 33 wins. Then when they came, they went back to the NBA Finals when LeBron came, right? Think about it with baseball. There's a reason why the Rays have been so successful, because it is about ratios, it's about numbers, it's about getting someone on base. The Yankees haven't won a World Series since 2009. They have the 3rd highest payroll this year. So to think that you can buy a championship, then hell, the Dodgers should have won every single year, but they couldn't win one after winning 111 games and have the highest payroll in baseball. So Gary, like, do we really think that the money is really going to pay dividends for them?
I mean, if you asked me this question in the mid-'90s when the Yankees were spending stupid money and just buying and manufacturing championships that way, like, then I'd tell you, yes, absolutely, it's worth it. Because I jokingly said it growing up, and I still mean it. At that point, during that time, the Yankees were like the greatest group of adults that money could buy, period. That isn't the same now because, and I think there might be a little bit of a marketing tie to this. You don't have to go to New York or Los Angeles to get the big money anymore. Like, if you're willing to have a team like a San Diego Padres that are willing to mortgage themselves considerably for you, like there's not that need. Players know that they can go play for the Pittsburgh Pirates and have a worldwide reach regardless because of social media, because of how we digest baseball or digest like information from our athletes on a regular basis. Answering your question, will it matter or does it matter? In this current era, no, for the reasons that I gave you. It's going. Yeah. The circle will always come back to, all right, we're just going to stockpile the best talent on this one team, and we're going to win a championship because reasons.
And I'm saying this now, Will, the Rays are going to win the division because they have the best pitching staff in baseball, I feel. And Garrett Cole is making more money in 1 year combined than the whole entire payroll of the Rays. I think the Rays are going to be that good. Like, I don't know, man. So before we kind of go to into round three of this episode here, high low, how many wins do the Mets win? Do they win? Do the Mets win the division? Do the Mets win the division? And if
So
so, how many wins?
So I think that my wife was actually just asking me this today, like all the money that you guys are spending talking about the Mets, you really think? And I go, you know what? I think the Mets are going to be in the same position they were just in, where they'll get right there. I don't think that they're going to win the division. And I know that's terrible to say, as a Mets fan, you're supposed to always believe in your team, but sometimes, and I know I said that their hopes is to pour all this money in so that they can get to the World Series, but sometimes that money doesn't translate to the talent, that you're hoping to bring in, or the talent doesn't perform as you were hoping they did. And sometimes it's also, to your point, going up against who's in your division, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got Max Scherzer making 43 million, Justin Verlander 43 million,
Hmm.
Francisco Lindor 32, Sterling Marte at 19, Brandon Nino at 18. I mean, you're two of your highest paid players. You have almost $90 million invested in two players who are past their prime.
Right.
And there's definitely a lot of injury concerns. And so for me, that's a lot of money that's being poured into two players with a little bit of injury history and are kind of breaking down, Gary.
You know, Steve Cohen has to make some noise in New York City. This has been a Yankee town, period, point blank, with the sole exception of 1986, it's been a Yankee town, and 69, but I guess 73. But either way, but the point is well, you're a Mets fan, but you understand, like, this is a Yankees.
Oh yeah,
This is a
big
Yankee
time.
state. Like, let's be clear about it. Like, yes, you have Met fans, but I would say probably 3-1 by ratio Yankees to Met
Hmm.
fans. So, like, you have to make some noise. Right now, Steve Cohen is studying from the Book of Steinbrenner, chapter 1, verse 4, and it's to spend as much money and make as much noise as humanly possible without doing it illegally, and see what happens. I respect him for that. Will that result in a division win? I'm actually
No.
going to say yes. I'm
I
actually
got
going to
the
say
Phillies.
that they can reverse the fortunes of what happened last season, where they laid that massive egg against Atlanta that cost them the division. I think that they can. I think that they can right the ship long enough, but I will put a caveat out there. There's
Yeah.
gonna if there's not a catastrophic, but if there's a long-term injury to either Verlander or Scherzer, that's going to put a dent in how many wins that they can win in the season ultimately, and I think that could play a huge factor in it. But
I mean,
if you give me a healthy Verlander and Scherzer for the majority of the season, I'm not asking for the whole season, because at 40, no. But like, if you give me enough quality starts, that's a 95 to 99 win team that can end up winning that division.
I think I'm gonna be honest, and I don't. Again, I am the biggest Philly sports hater in the world. Um, I think the Phillies are gonna take the division. Honestly,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
Phillies, man.
it's a
I think
strong team.
I think they got hot at the right time. Took
Hmm.
advantage of a less than Atlanta. Took advantage of a Padres team that really had no business being there. Like, I think that was kind of not. I'm not saying that they're not good, but I think they kind of just caught lightning in a bottle, the same way that Atlanta did in 2021, where they kind of just came out of nowhere. It's like, oh shit, they're the world champions. What? Like,
I mean,
they came
dude,
out of
Trey
they came
Turner.
out of nowhere for that.
But I'm just gonna tell you this, man. Trey Turner is a bad man. I mean, that dude he's not power, but I mean, he's each year he's gonna give you probably batting 310. He's gonna probably bat 310, score 115 runs. maybe give you 25 home runs, but the man is just the man just knows how to get on base.
Mhm.
He knows how to get on base, and that's what baseball is about. But anyway, we're going to kind of get into this NBA load management thing here because we have spent a half an hour talking baseball. Wow,
There's more baseball than we've talked about in the previous 73 episodes combined.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but it's going to be exciting. Really want to talk about this NBA load management thing, and I saw how there was a quote that I saw from someone where it had the Ball brothers, and they said that load management wasn't based on science, but it was that AAU has destroyed basketball players and they're coming into the league with broken bodies. Will, true or false? But thoughts on load management?
Yeah, I think it is. I hate it, but I think it's a process that makes sense, right? Like, we obviously don't want to wear down the best players too early on because you might need them later on. And if you're on track to make that later on postseason, yes, it definitely makes sense. We see it every year in football. I know we're talking about basketball, but we see it every single year in football. Like, let's be honest, the last 2 to 3 games, your team is about to go to the playoffs and you're a 1-2 or a top seed, you're resting your starters. Like, so in basketball, I hate it because I love seeing the starters out there just as a sports fan, but I get it. It makes sense to me because you need them in the long stretch.
Okay, Gary, I respect it.
I think we're spoiled because we, in our youth, saw Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan played 82 games every single season.
Play through anything.
And he was, without question, the best player in the game. And he gave you 82 every single year. So we're looking at that and going, oh, well, if Michael could do it, why can't y'all? Like, you're supposed to be younger. You're supposed to be, better trained athletes than what our generation's like top athletes of the day went through. Like, so for me, there's a level of that. Like, no, we're spoiled because we had NBA players in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s that refused to miss games. You look at somebody. I'll throw a name, a blast from the past. AC Green. He is the Iron Man of the NBA. I believe he has played. I think he played some like 1,100 straight games, and the only reason why he stopped playing, like why the streak broke, is because he retired. Like, you're not going to see that. Like, let me see. As I'm talking to you, I'm looking up who has the longest streak of current games.
And while you're doing that, I'm just gonna say, like, I'm kind of I try not to be like when we talk about baseball, right? Like evolution, and we're talking about how the games have played, but even with players who have had load management still have gotten injured in the playoffs, right? So it's kind of like from like a scientific standpoint, it kind of does. And I've studied the science of it a little bit, and I've talked to people who work in that field, and they say that it does the opposite because when you're not moving your body and you shut it down for a couple weeks, then trying to get back on, your body is not in basketball shape or football shape, right? So I think it kind of does the reverse. And you look at Kawhi Leonard, this man has rested for half of my lifetime, and the man still gets injured. So I mean, I'm just kind of like, dude, he's played like maybe 3 games in the last 10 years, man. Like, no, he's played more. But I don't know. His injury history, you would think that he would be a little bit fresher, but his body's literally breaking down in front of us here.
So just real quick, currently Mikal Bridges of, I believe now the Nets, he was just traded, has the current streak at 449 games. Mind you, AC Green, as I said before, 1,192. So nearly 1,200 games played from November of 1986 until he retired in April of 2001.
But how many minutes per game?
Doesn't matter. The fact that he played, no, but I'm saying like the fact that he was available,
right,
that many games in a row. Like, there are players that are healthy, but they're healthy scratches that you see. It's like, admittedly, he was long in the tooth by that point, but there was a game that Tim Duncan didn't play, and the reason that Popovich gave was DNP, old. Like that's not much of an excuse, but it's the truth. He was getting older and all that, but you're not going to see the AC Green types anymore. And while Mikal Bridges has like the streak now, you can see like it's 449 games. That is a whole almost 10 full seasons less than what AC Green did.
So. I mean, I'm just saying. I really just want to see how many points, how many minutes per game I don't know if he did that if he's going to be playing at least 30 minutes a game for 100 straight games. I mean, I'm just saying, but no, it's facts.
I mean, obviously in his peak during like the late 80s and early 90s was when he was, playing more minutes, and he was like the sixth man coming off the bench for the Lakers at that point, and then for the Suns. Obviously, towards the end, he wasn't sitting out there putting up 40 minutes a night, but the fact was he played.
Okay. Hey, no, that's facts. I mean, Will, it's just like you're looking at the long run, the stretch run of the NBA, and this would be a perfect transition to talk about your boy LeBron James. I'm gonna put a little bit of an audible on the agenda. And I was actually a LeBron skeptic for like a half a minute. Can you believe that, Will? Like you look at I mean, seriously, like
you're like as big as defender now, man.
I mean, I'm just saying, but he's not my favorite player. Let me just be clear about that.
No, I get that. I definitely get that.
But I'm looking at. I questioned the foot injury at first. Then I look at the fact that after he scored, he broke the record. Then he missed 3 games. And I'm like, okay, what's that about? And then he said these next 23 games were going to be the most important games of his career. Then he hurts his foot. I don't know, man. Just go on, man. Just go
on. I'm just going to start by saying there's a few reasons I do not like LeBron, and it's going to go into the conversation and your point here. First being, the guy's just good. Like, come on. Like, it's easy for me to hate a guy that's good. That's why I hate Tom Brady. He was so great at his job. I literally could not stand him. So LeBron in the same fashion, especially within basketball and playing up until his age and still playing. And I don't think he's going to retire anytime soon, honestly. I think LeBron's going to keep going. So to play up into these longer and longer ages, these guys are just, they're proving not only something to themselves, but to the world of how great they are, and they cemented their legacy. My next point, the reason I hate LeBron also off the court, he's such a great guy. Yet again, he gives so much back to the world. He's just fantastic. Now on the court, the reason I hate LeBron, number 3, because of his sportsmanship. It's honestly just his sportsmanship. I don't like the way LeBron carries himself. I don't like the way he, every time something little happens, instead of just getting right back in the game, he's right up in the ref's face like, bro, help me. And it's like, dude, just get back on the court and play ball, like play past it. Other sports have to learn to play past it when penalties are called. So to my point in LeBron, he's great. There's no debate in that. There's no debate in the stats. Stats are stats. You cannot debate those. I will never debate stats because stats are facts. Statistically, he is fantastic. Professionally, and the way he carries himself on the court, that's just what I don't like personally. But again, if he's backing it up statistically, he can do whatever he wants, say whatever he wants, talk however he wants. He can fake an injury. He can, be a little hurt and take 17 games off, because at the end of the day, he's still LeBron, and his team is slightly hurting without him. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, those are facts. I mean, Gary, I said if it kind of messed with my emotions a little bit, because I'm sitting here, they're down 27, and I'm like, they're just getting their butt spanked. And then they have this miraculous comeback, and you look at Malik Beasley, who just played absolutely stellar defense on Luka. You look at Mo Bamba, who's a damn good 3-point shooter for his size at 39%. You look at You look at Vanderbilt, you look at these moves, and they did it without D'Angelo Russell, and you're like, man, okay, this team could not say get to the six, but still make a run. But now that LeBron is out, and then AD is hurt, the wind will blow and he'll fall. He leads the leagues in average falls per game at like 10. The forecast is just kind of doom and gloom for me because this team has already been horrifically inconsistent, even with LeBron on the lineup. So, what is his forecast without him?
Can they go 2 years without making a playoff? No, that was just my question. Like, can they go 2 years without making a playoff run with having LeBron on the roster?
Absolutely not. They know that. If you had spoken to me yesterday before the game against the Thunder, I would have been a little more concerned. Naturally, you can't just miss LeBron James or miss an Anthony Davis, even if Anthony Davis is, less than what he once was. But the fact that they pulled off that victory, I don't care that it was the Thunder. It was a game that they really, if you look at it, if the Thunder would have beat them, you're not going to sit there and go, oh, my God, the Thunder beat them. It's almost like, yeah, the Thunder beat a Lakers team with nobody on it. So, the fact that they were able to pull out that victory leads me to believe, I don't believe that they are going to be great without LeBron, but I feel like if you can get AD back soon and you have the additions that you have, and Jared Vanderbilt is definitely a low-key smart acquisition on their part. I think because of that, I don't see any reason why they can't catch the 9th or 10th seed at this point. I think if you gave me a healthy LeBron with all of them, then they would probably. I would have put money out there to say that they would have at least caught the 6th seed. Now I'm like, no, you're destined for the play-in. You just want to hope that you don't get the lower seeds like that. But who knows? I think. I read somewhere that I was reading an article where if his injury, if it was a matter of significant importance, and look, you either play this game or the Lakers don't make the playoffs. LeBron is healthy enough to play those games. It's just a lot of pain that he's dealing with.
Yeah,
so there's a little bit of optimism in the sense of perhaps it's 3 weeks and it's a hard 3 weeks as opposed to it's 3 weeks and then it could be longer. It could now if it's all right, we know that he'll be back before the end of this month. I can see them going on some type of run.
Yeah, and Will, you look at it and you make up a very interesting point, and you look at the standings right now. If AD can come back and with we're forgetting D'Angelo Russell made an All-Star game, think 2 or 3 years ago. The man was still averaging about 18, 5 and 5. You put with him and AD and the rest of those other guys. I mean, they're 30 and 33 right now. They're 1 game out of 10 at 10th place. I don't trust the Pelicans because Zion is not going to come back. They're falling down. They were up as high as the 3rd seed at one point.
In the West when the season started, after I believe after 20 games that they had the best record. So
yeah, you look at the Jazz. Do you really trust them? No. Minnesota, meh. And you look at Dallas. I mean, they're 1 and 4 right now with those two. So they're actually a decent team even without LeBron, with D'Angelo Russell and AD, with Vanderbilt and the rest of those other guys. Russell's going to have to put up a little bit more offensively and really kind of focus defensively. But I'm just saying they're not out of it without LeBron, and I really think that part of me feels that this is a conspiracy theory to rest him for the 3 weeks.
Yeah,
and have him come back.
Which ties into that. I know it's an injury, but load management, right? But you make a really good point. I think that I hate LeBron, but I am a huge Lakers fan, always have been. And I hope that they make a run. My teams are all over the place. Don't worry.
Yeah, same here. I'm a Broncos fan, Yankees, Bruins. Hey, I'm in the club.
So I agree with you in the point where they have the pieces. The pieces, when they come back in, they have to step up. You can't. LeBron he's great. He's fantastic. But if he's out, if your leader is out, you have to pick up the pieces, right? Whenever Steph Curry goes out, the Warriors are expected to pick up the pieces because Steph's not in. So in like manner, the Lakers have to do the same thing when their pieces come back, and they have the talent. It's not like they don't have the talent; they do have the talent.
They're very average, Gary. They're a very, very average NBA team with LeBron. And as great as LeBron is, I don't think that there's going to be like this precipitous fall because
Mhm.
the rest of the teams are just as average. I
Right.
mean, Golden State is average. So, I
Right.
mean, dude, if they get into it, I'm not saying that I still think they have a chance to make the play in,
Yeah.
Gary.
No, like I said, I think that win against the Thunder showed me a lot about this team and like them not willing to fold. I think the roster that they had prior to the trade deadline would have folded, and then that would have just been it. But I think there's enough younger talent on this team that are going to help just kind of keep the ships straight long enough for LeBron to come back. And like I said, I don't think they're going to win a championship. I don't think that they're going to win a playoff series, even though that's part of my predictions and all that. But I think that they will at least make the plan. And like you said, they're the teams in front of them. Just right off the top of the head, like I don't trust Utah. They're like they're basically like they caught fire. It's fool's gold with them. Like they had a good start to the season, but slowly but surely they're snapping back into reality. So
Yeah, and I mean, like the only reason why they're still in the play is because they had a good start, right? And just like
much like Brooklyn, yeah, just much exactly like Brooklyn. They front loaded their wins so well, so that like
Mhm.
that fall off isn't going to be as bad. I just crossing sports. It's kind of like it's kind of like our Giants. Like we front loaded our wins, and that's how we got that 7-3 start certainly helped matters because we were 7-3 and finished the season 9-7-1. So
Mhm. We went off
hey,
of luck alone the whole season.
but hey, you guys, but Gary, you got more than your 6 wins.
you
Yeah.
did. Well,
You got more than your 6.
I asked repeatedly for at least 6 wins from them. Just marked improvement. I asked for 6 wins, 9 in the playoff game. So hey,
You're way better than me. I am the Giants fan that doubts until we win. I was expecting a 4-win season. We got to the playoffs and we won a wild card
Okay.
game, and to me, that was just
And that's
that was
great,
awesome.
and that's beautiful. Whereas everyone was putting my Broncos in the Super Bowl, and I was like, let's hold up. And what happened? 5-12. I'm just saying. Yeah,
What did happen? I mean,
oh God, we could go on and on. I can go on a whole soliloquy about
I know
that, but
that's a separate
and
episode.
Gary, I know you guys touched on a little bit about NCAA. I feel like NCAA is kind of boring, but I want to do another pivot with these Mavericks here because they're 1-4. Luka and Kyrie are 1-4, and again, I don't want to try to say that they need to sow doubt, but they love a good storyline and they hate Kyrie. So Gary, I mean, is there a cause for concern with these two being 1-4 with starting?
I'm going to repeat my dad joke from the last episode. They're the Alice Mavericks because they play no D. Like, but it's a joke, but it's also extremely true. Like when you made the trade for Kyrie Irving, you weren't trading for a defensive stalwart. You're trading for instant offense, and it looks pretty, but when it comes to crunch time, they've shown us in 4 of the last 5 games they ain't getting it done. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is all this going to lead to Luka leaving Dallas at some point? Because this experiment isn't working. And
if I were Dallas, go ahead, Gary.
No, go ahead.
If I was just gonna say to your point, if I were Dallas, I'd do everything in my power to keep Luka. That's all I was gonna say.
No, you're absolutely right. He's the face of the franchise, but we know Kyrie Irving to be a franchise assassin. So,
I mean,
right?
Yeah. I mean, you just can't trust Kyrie with anything.
There's not enough money that Mark Cuban has that can fix that kind of mess. Because Joe Tsai has that kind of money. He couldn't fix that mess. Like it's a matter with him. Like, you don't know what you're getting out of him. Like, yes, you're seeing him play pretty well thus far, but like he's trying to stay out of trouble. He's trying to put on the face of a good teammate that knows that his name has been dragged through the mud for the better part of the last 2 seasons. So, to that end, though, it hasn't produced wins. They are not a good defensive team. They weren't a good defensive team before the trade. They are significantly worse now. Now, does that mean they're going to fall off the cliff and miss the playoffs altogether? No. I think that a lot of these teams front loaded their wins, and they will be able to ride that into a postseason postseason berth. And I just don't see Dallas being any better with Kyrie Irving than they were without him.
I mean, that's facts. I mean, I'm not gonna press the panic button yet because I look at the sample size of what the Mavericks did without Kyrie Irving and without Christian Wood on that team, and how they beat the snot out of the Phoenix Suns on their home floor. So I still think there's just a little bit of enough time to where they can maybe get things figured out. They win maybe 1 or 2, 3 games, go on a little bit of a winning streak. I'm just saying the sky's the limit, and I think that the quality of competition for the West has been just a little bit down. And so, who in the Western Conference do you think is the favorite that's actually going to win outside of Denver Nuggets?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know because it's the West. I know you kind of said like, there's equal talent there when you're talking about the West, right? But they're all those teams are so competitive, and when it gets towards the end, those teams really will fight. Now, I know you're trying to move a little bit, but I kind of want to go back just a second to Kyrie, Dallas, and Luka. Can Kyrie, first of all, how long is Kyrie willing to play nice in the sandbox, clear his name? We know it doesn't take that long for him to turn. Like, is he gonna wait until if the team makes it to a postseason run or not to make that turn and then say, hey, trade me again? Like, I don't want to be here. Is he gonna wait to that point, or is this finally his nice new clean slate where he's going to be the player that people expect him to be and the teammate that people expect him to be? Show up, play better, be there, and be a great teammate and lead us into, the postseason. So as far as the West, it's honestly, I can't even honestly give you my honest opinion because it would be such a toss up for me.
I mean, that's facts, Garrett. You're on mute.
I know I was on mute. I was trying to think, like, do I have any other additional thoughts regarding like Dallas or?
No, the West. I was saying, my bad. No, I'm saying outside of the Denver McNuggets, like, is there any other team outside the West that really has a chance? I mean, I really like Phoenix, but again, they're just so top heavy with those 3, and Chris Paul is eventually going to tear a hamstring walking down the street.
Postseason injury is coming. Everybody, the Chris Paul postseason injury is coming. It's either a hamstring or a calf or a foot or
my shoulder
or shoulder, something. Something's going to happen because it always does, and it's unfortunate for him. But I was getting ready to say, I'm like, Phoenix, I guess. Like that, at least this is a good thing about the West. You don't have a clear-cut favorite because right now. You look at a Golden State team that's currently in the 8th seed, and they're missing their star player. And hell, like, not saying that, when they won the championship last season, nobody really sat there and said, "Oh yeah, the Warriors are going to make the playoffs and they're going to come back and they're going to, the dynasty's going to rise again and all that." Nobody said that. Once they got to the conference finals, it was like, okay, now this looks like the Warriors team that won in 2015. Like, okay, maybe, possibly. But they didn't come out playing like world beaters like they had in times past. And even now, I'm like, I think what we're seeing, and this is just a league-wide thing, as long as you get in, records don't matter anymore. Because you look at this season, there's only going to be 2, maybe 3 teams that win 50 games this season. Like, which I'm dumbfounded by at this point. Like, I usually there's a team that kind of like Boston is that team, and they've got 18 losses already. Like, they'll probably end up with the best record, but the best record this season might be 56 wins, might be 57.
Yeah.
Like, which that has not been the case in decades. Like, it's been a really long time since nobody's won 60 games, and like, nobody's like was the clear cut definitive like team to beat. Boston, for as good as they are, they just got spanked by the Knicks. So let's all take let's all. I know the Knicks are better. Before all these Knicks fans text me and start cursing me out, the Knicks are better. Yes, okay, but let's not make them out to be Patrick Ewing and them boys from the '90s either. Like, come on.
But can I just say though, they had a 20 they had a 20-point lead against a very good Cleveland Cavaliers team and still almost gave the game away. Like, Donovan Mitchell was a force to be that's a whole nother story. Donovan Mitchell went into the Garden. I mean, they lost to them their first 2 games. So there's a little bit of weakness there when it comes to Boston. And they're going to need to have the first seed in the playoffs, because I tell you what, if Milwaukee gets if that game 7 is in Milwaukee.
Now, I want to jump in and say, like, because game 7, now I'm going to preface all of this because we also have to acknowledge that last season, the Miami Heat might have been the most fugazi, worst number 1 seed of any NBA team that I've ever seen in my life. Like, let's be clear about this. But at the end of the day, they took Boston game 7, the second. So, you can't sit there and say like that number 1 seed is super important, because Miami had the number 1 seed. They had game 7 on their home court and lost. So it really it's no longer the seeding. You have to be the healthiest, and you have to be. It's like I love how we keep going back to the NFL. What happens in the NFL?
But it's true.
Except for this past season where it was clear, like, it was either going to be Philly or Kansas City. It's whoever's the hot hand going into the playoffs usually is the last team standing. And I think that's where we're at this year. Like, if you tell me that the Warriors can get healthy, like, all the way right by April, I would not be surprised if they repeated as champions. Like, it would not shock me in the least. It would be impressive, but I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. But you just have to be healthy, and you have to be hot going into the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. And then just high level before we get to Gary Scribes. Will, do the Celtics win championship? Yay, nay?
This year? Yay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what the hell? It won't be manufactured this time, so sure, give it to
me. All right. Well, Gary, you have your floor. Will, we do Gary's gripes, so Gary usually gets like a minute or two to just complain something that's really griping him.
Normally I would do a gripe this evening, but Jeff, you kind of touched on a gripe that you had, and I would like to yield my gripe time to you.
Oh, which one was that? I have a lot of gripes.
Wait, review it, because I know there's one that I'm like, no, you can definitely talk more about that we didn't talk about.
I mean, was it the Padres? I mean, I got gripes about that. I mean, but we got NBA load management. I mean, we got the Lakers. I mean, there's,
I say, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna. This has nothing to do that we talked about in the episode, but I just have to say it because the whole Eric Bieniemy thing, and I know that's been dragging on, and people saying how he needs to prove of how he needs to be a head coach, and because he didn't call plays. Okay, like we need to stop that BS, because we had Nathaniel Hackett, who had the same type of situation and got a head coaching job, and when he even called plays for the Jaguars, that's when they had Blake Bortles, and they had a 13 or 14-point lead in the AFC Championship game in 2017 and lost. Okay, so we need to stop with the whole Eric Bieniemy thing. There's something else in the air. There's something in the water as to why this man clearly hasn't gotten a head coaching job. And it's something that we may never, ever, ever find out. But I'm going to say that man is going to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders next year, and you can put that on the board. Yeah, that's pretty much my gripe. And the Yankees are not going to make the playoffs this year.
I'm sorry?
They're not.
You want to divulge upon that?
So here's okay. Let's just look at it, man. Garrett Cole, okay, the man gives up a home run, gives up an average of 1.2 home runs per game. Also a little bit injury prone. You got Carlos Rendon, we signed to a $170 million contract. He's also injury prone and misses about 5 to 6 starts on average since 2019. You got Hector Ortiz, who is going to have his second season with a manageable workload, but he had a little bit of ailments. Josh Donaldson, who's 37, are we really going to rely on him, right? Outside of Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, we're too heavy right-handed. And I think that the Rays are going to win the division. And I do not think the Yankees, if they do make it, they're going to win second and they're going to get in the wild card and they're going to lose in the wild card game. And I'm saying that as a Yankees fan. I hope I'm wrong, but there's just something in the air about this team that just makes me a little bit nervous, Gary.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have an easy path to playoffs. I think they'll get there, like to your point, but I don't think it's going to be a top spot.
Well, I'm going to be the homer and the optimist and say that after a few seasons, like, you know, they have to, they're slowly creeping into that Buffalo Bills window of you got to win now or you're not going to do it. So I feel like they have 2 seasons of like, you know, you got to win now or you're not, or we got to blow this up. So this is now season 1 of that.
Can they beat Houston? Can they beat Houston?
That's the Achilles heel. That is their Achilles heel, and we have to figure out how to get it done.
Just one more. Like, who is like it? Just I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like the Knicks with the Bulls, man. It's like they just couldn't beat the Bulls, you know, or they could. I don't know. But
the Pistons the Bulls had the Pistons. The Knicks had the Bulls. Like the Pacers had the Knicks. There's always going to be that team in the way that you have to get by in order to take that next step. So for the Yankees, it's Houston. They clearly show, like, look, the ALCS was a collision course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those 2 teams are going to meet regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. But Will, glad to have you on.
Yeah.
You know, when we bring someone on, we like to give them like a spotlight of, you got any projects? You got anything you excited about that you want people to know about, sir?
I am boring outside of football season, guys. Like, I watch my Mets here and there. I watch my Lakers the closest, you know, the closer it gets to playoff time. I'm a boring dad now who just watches my 18-month-old and takes care of my wife. So the most thing I am excited about, and just to make this sports related, well, there's 2 things unsports related. I'm enrolled in my MBA program, so I start in 2 weeks.
Nice.
So that's exciting. But I'm most excited about, and I'm sure Jeff can tell where I'm going with this, that the Eagles have been so quiet. The fans have been so quiet. It's been so awesome. I've been so excited. My heart is full. That's all I ever wanted.
Well,
I didn't care about them winning. I just wanted the fans to be quiet.
Well, I got such a good night's sleep the night of the Super Bowl. I slept like a day.
You did?
Well,
I didn't.
It was just, I woke up the next day, birds were chirping. I'm like, oh yeah, because Philly lost. Right on. Yes.
Did Jeff tell you what I did? I didn't get any sleep. I was up planning out content for 2 weeks of what I was going to post about.
Outstanding.
And I
executed. As for me, I have to see the Chiefs, and I have to see the Chiefs win the Super Bowl yet again. So I mean,
you can't get too banged up about that though. Like, at the end of the day, it's Mahomes, right? Like,
no,
it's Mahomes. Like,
no, we lost to them 17 times in a row. You realize? Look, listen, we lost to them 17 times in a row. Okay, like that's bad, man. Like,
you know how many times we've lost to the Eagles?
But in a row,
it's a lot.
There have been 3 miracles at the Meadowlands, and it's all to the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
3.
Right.
All right. Well. Glad to have you back on. You will definitely have to bring you. We'll definitely have to bring you back on.
Thank you,
Gary,
guys.
look forward to your. No doubt. No doubt. Glad to have another JWU alum. Gary, will definitely look forward to your gripes on Tuesday. Be
Yes.
prepared. To all of our fans, all of our supporters, we appreciate it. Again, peace out, and you guys take care. Deuces.